Hello and welcome to the Cardiac Cats YouTube channel. I'm your host, Jacob Shorba, and we're here because there is a lot of smoke. There's a lot of just breaking news, it seems like, or rumors, we'll call it, about what the Jaguars are going to be doing at pick number 5. And I thought it would be an injustice if we did not at least talk about this before the draft. So I've got some time this morning, thankfully, to discuss this. And so we're going to do just that. And this is all regarding, like I said, what are the Jaguars going to do at number 5? There's been so many shifts in the betting odds, and no, I'm not going to give you some like FanDuel discounts or tell you I'm sponsored by them here, but this is a good indicator of what teams are looking to do. And so, I mean, you can see, for example, Tennessee locked in at number 1, and so many of these odds are very strong in one direction of one player because we pretty much know what's going to happen at these picks. And even if, say, Jacksonville or another team were to move up to, say, pick number 2, it doesn't really change things here because the odds are Travis Hunter going second overall, and that's probably what would happen in that scenario. So we're pretty confident that the first 4 picks of this draft, with the Patriots being the closest to up in the air, well, they're really not, are going to be Cam Ward, Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, and Will Campbell. And then you get to Jacksonville. A lot of different players you could talk about here. But what is so heavily shifted recently is obviously from Mason Graham all the way to Ashton Jeanty, who was in the thousands as far as odds. And we've been talking about him for, technically since the end of the season. I had mentioned him, but mainly over the last month as an option for the Jaguars. And things have really picked up over the last week or two in that direction. There's a lot of reasons for why that would line up as a logical option. However, there is another player that is entering the mix here. It seems like a legitimate candidate to potentially be the pick at number 5 and be the pick over Ashton Jeanty. And that player right now is Kelvin Banks Jr. out of Texas. So really shocking stuff here. I will just kind of show where we're getting a lot of this information. Some of it, maybe a little more questionable. For example, I'll share something Yardline Yoda put out, but he has been hit or miss. You got to keep that in mind. And I think a lot of the draft takes he's had over the last week or so, it's going to be a pretty big deal whether they hit or not, because at this point, like, you got to get it right. But going to Dilla, right, who is a very reliable source in a lot of these things, have not had problems here with him reporting fake news or anything like that recently. He was talking on Twitter a bunch yesterday about the potential for this pick. He went on 1010XL as well. And one of the questions I just tried to find where someone talked about this was just asking if Banks was a real possibility there, because he had thrown him out in a mock draft earlier that day. And you can see he confirms it here, that Banks is a legitimate possibility for the Jaguars. And not only that, but at pick number 5. And when he went on 1010XL, which, keep in mind, this was pre-recorded in the morning. So this would have been Tuesday morning around like 8 o'clock. So this was not the most fresh news, but still very relevant, I would say. Pretty recent. And when they asked Dilla if he thought it would be Kelvin Banks Jr. or Ashton Jeanty, like, which one does he think it would be at number 5 if they stick and pick, which we know the Jaguars don't want to do, he said he thought it would be Kelvin Banks Jr., although it was not some, like, heavily definitive statement or saying that, yeah, for sure, there's no doubt in my mind. And this is where it kind of contradicts a little bit with what Yardline Yoda was saying, and some of this is different stuff here, but he believes it's 100% lock for Ashton Jeanty. My personal opinion, I think it's Ashton Jeanty if they stick at 5. But I do think that is up in the air, and I could understand why the Jaguars could like Kelvin Banks Jr. You also see some other stuff thrown in here too, such as the potential bidding war for the Jaguars pick, which Dilla was also posting some stuff kind of hinting at that as well. I'm not sure I've got it pulled up here. And he confirms here this was recorded, I guess it was 10 a.m. yesterday. Now, he does say there were talks on Monday night that they were content, the Bears at number 10, and then now they're looking to move up. And I'll just go find what I'm looking for here. Yep. Talking about the bidding, right? This is a potential thing that's going on. You also had another, I guess they're gone. And their insider account put out some news regarding this as well, that a trade may be incoming. You saw, I think it was Brian Baldinger post something like around the same time that he felt like something big was coming. And so much of the talk is around Jacksonville right now. A lot of it is with the Chicago Bears, who are one of these teams listed. There's some other teams that could want to move up. I don't buy the Raiders. I think that's more so just looking into the price. The mystery team could be the Broncos. We know that they are actually looking to move up in the draft. So that could be a team. I don't think Jacksonville will move back that far. That would be a pretty big deal to go back to 20. But at the same time, I mean, if it was a legit offer, I would consider it. I'm not going to lie at all. So that's kind of where things stand right now with the Jaguars. So you have all that conversation, right? Is it Kelvin Banks Jr.? Is it Ashton Jeanty? Those seem like the two names it would be at number 5. Also, another nugget thrown out, and this would be relevant, say, if the Jaguars trade back. Dilla also mentioned that he thinks the Jaguars are higher on Matthew Golden than Tetairoa McMillan. So for all the talk about Tetairoa McMillan, I'm going to probably say it's very unlikely that he's the pick for the Jaguars unless he has a titanic fall on draft day, say to the end of the first round, and they look to move up for him. That would be the kind of thing I think would have to happen to land Tetairoa McMillan. The other thing that the Jaguars have been considering that has been talked about quite a bit yesterday, because we heard that the Browns and the Giants were willing to consider trade offers for 2 and 3. It was thrown out that there is a team out there that is dying to move up to get Travis Hunter. Essentially, I'm paraphrasing a little bit here, but there is a team that is going very aggressive to try to make that move. And Dilla, while he didn't necessarily say it was the Jaguars specifically, he said that Jacksonville is among the most aggressive teams right now when it comes to looking at trading up. And you can understand why, right? I mean, you're going from a pick where, look, as much as I love Ashton Jeanty, he is a running back. So you could get a blue chip player at number 5, but it is going to be at a position that they might not feel comfortable with. Whereas if you come up to 2 with the Cleveland Browns, which would be the team, and we know the Jaguars have been in contact with them, if you could get Travis Hunter from the Cleveland Browns, now you get a player that is really damn good still at a more important position, and he plays both sides of the ball. If you get all that potential, okay, now we have a top-tier player, right? So you can understand why Jacksonville's looking at that, and I believe he is probably their number 1 guy on their board at this point. Realistically, that would be the case. The problem, of course, is what is the cost going to be? You know, I had this conversation with a Browns fan on Twitter yesterday. If you're watching this, shout out to you. But we were talking about like what it would cost, and I threw out a post yesterday saying I would give up, say, 36 and 70 if I had to go up to get Travis Hunter. And basically he responds saying, well, that's just not enough. Like, we need a future first. And I totally understand from their perspective, right? Because you may say that's like too much for the trade value chart, but they should want a lot to get Travis Hunter, right? They're to give up Travis Hunter. If I'm Cleveland, I'm not making that trade. I think that's insanity to give up Travis Hunter. You have had so many years with Deshaun Watson now without hope, without anything to look forward to. And now you could get Travis Hunter at number 2. Shedeur Sanders is falling. And you could maybe even trade up for him, who is a good fit for your offense. Cleveland could ace the draft tomorrow. I mean, it's very likely that we see some incredible scenario from them where they actually pull that off. And I would probably predict that right now, although there's so many options, I'm not going to say it's more likely than not. So I don't think Cleveland should make that move. But if they're willing to listen, if they're willing to take a somewhat reasonable offer, and it does not include a future first from a team who just picked 5th overall, I mean, I would be in on that. I would not sit here and say that the trade is going to happen. I'm not going to tell you we're moving up for Travis Hunter. It kind of reminds me of last year when I thought we might be moving up for Neighbors at the last second. There was talk about Jacksonville making trade calls the day of the draft. It didn't happen, right? And so I think it's kind of the same thing. While they're super interested, I just think the price is going to be too much. So there's your possibilities, right? Jacksonville, essentially what we have learned from this whole thing is they do not want to pick a number 5. It's not a good spot, and I don't blame them for being in that situation, but why would you want to move into number 5 if you're another team? Why would you want to move up if you're the Bears? Like, I think it'd be great to have Ashton Jeanty, but I don't know. Like, you're also going to have to give up probably one of your second-round picks. There's good value there. I would probably do it if I was them, but from the eyes of them, I don't think they would actually do that trade. So I think Jacksonville, if I had to guess, is stuck at number 5 just by the way the draft is. And I think it's a bit of a toss-up between Ashton Jeanty and Kelvin Banks Jr. Now, what I want to wrap this up with is just giving my honest thoughts on Kelvin Banks Jr. because he's not someone I've talked about a ton on this channel or really went super in depth with. You would have seen him in summer scouting for me. And one thing you'll probably remember if you'd watched that, which, probably isn't a ton of people at this point. So I scroll down to him and you could kind of get the idea of where I have him ranked or how my thoughts are looking at this. He had a major issue going into 2024 with weight spending. I mean, it was one of the worst issues I've seen with any tackle before. And before I get deeper into that, this is not all going to be negative. This is just my honest thoughts. Even if we're going to draft it, I'm not going to sugarcoat it or tell you what you want to hear or any of that. There's good and bad to players. And with Kelvin Banks Jr., that was a major issue because he would get so much on his toes. And he could hold on. He generally, did better than you'd expect in those situations. But you set yourself up to lose reps very quickly. And you've seen that still a little bit this year. But he has improved a lot with his balance. So that is a good thing that he has gotten better there. I think as a pass protector, you have a player who, when you're watching film, most reps are really sound for him. Like, you're not that concerned about his pass protection. I think it's the clear area of strength in this game. There are times, though, like I mentioned, where he does get over his toes a little too much, and a defender can get around him. You saw Jalen Walker do that a bit to him when he played him in both the games where Texas and Georgia matched up. As far as run blocking, this is my biggest issue with Kelvin Banks Jr. When I was watching film most recently, because it had been a little bit since I watched Banks, he had a major problem lining up blocks in the run game. It was better when it's on the line of scrimmage and it's right ahead of him and it's a simple block. He still would have some issues, but he was generally better there. But for a scheme where he's probably going to be asked to get on the move, I'm kind of surprised that Jacksonville has him ranked this high, because they clearly do. He is apparently the offensive tackle 2 for the team. That's something Dilla also confirmed. It is Will Campbell, then Kelvin Banks Jr., then Armand Membu. With Kelvin Banks Jr., you get him in the space, you get him the block. If he can line it up, if he can hit his target, he's a killer, right? That is great, but he doesn't do that. There were games where you would just be waiting for him to finally hit a block. Like, he would just be running around in space. He would miss a guy, or He'd barely touch him, and it just wouldn't really have much of an impact on the play. That's kind of where I'm at with Kelvin Banks Jr. I think he's a very good pass protector with occasional lapses. And I think as a run blocker, there is a lot of potential, but I do not think that he is a positive factor there unless he is going to just be going like north and south, easy and line up your target. That's the biggest issue with him. I was really relieved the other night. I was watching Marcus Whitman, that franchise guy. He said the same thing about it. I was like, oh my gosh, I thought it was crazy because I'd mentioned this on Twitter. People would tell me I'm insane or like he's the greatest run blocker in the world. I don't think he is right now. Now, the exciting thing about Kelvin Banks Jr., which I will finish on this note because we'll provide both sides of this. Well, those things are issues. Well, he's not a complete prospect right now. And I do want to bring in players that are going to have a huge impact in the run game on the offensive line because that has been so clearly ignored by this franchise for years and years and years. It is a major problem, and it's something they will have to fix if they draft Ashton Jeanty. I'll make that very clear. I have to say that every time because everyone wants to say, oh, you can't draft Ashton Jeanty. You need offensive line. Well, you would have to invest at pick 36 and beyond or trading up into the first for like a Simmons or you would have to make moves, right? And if you make those moves, it's not going to stop me from taking Ashton Jeanty because I have a plan. But with Kelvin Banks Jr., there are no issues I see with his game where I say that's not fixable. I also think this is a high character guy. I think this is a player that, well, I don't like the run blocking side of things. I thought Jacksonville might not be as high on him because of that. I can understand why they like him because I think that he would be a great fit for the Jaguars culture. I think he would be phenomenal for that. So I think you would love all those things, but at the end of the day, it is a question of can you sort out these flaws? And he is a player whose projection is rising. He's a player who's getting better and better and better. He has shown clear improvement. I have not seen him take massive steps back or anything like that. He is a player who's going to be on the rise and I think could really figure things out at the NFL and be a really good blindside protector. Now, where would he start for Jacksonville off the bat? It is said he would be the left guard. It's said he would replace Ezra Cleveland. And there's some rumors that Ezra Cleveland is not not necessarily the favorite player of the front office. I think that's a guy that they would look to replace. And apparently some of that is coming from, Grant Udinski being in Minnesota and why they moved off of him. And whatever reason that is, I don't know what it is. It probably is going to translate a little bit to Jacksonville. So I could see them making a move there, moving off Ezra Cleveland and wanting to have Banks be there for now while Walker Little's contract runs through and eventually you make Banks the left tackle of the future. That would be my bet on how things go. But this is a young player. He's got some things to work on. Not really worth the 5th overall pick where he is right now, in my opinion. But could he get better? Could he be a really good blindside protector with some improvement? Is he getting better? Yes to all those things. So, with that said, those are my final thoughts. If you are a bettor, you might honestly throw something down on plus 1300 for Kelvin Banks. This was a lot lower before. I literally watched the odds change as Dilla was talking on 1010XL. So if you think there's any credibility to him, you're probably right. Because those things definitely correlated there. But with that all said, we are going to wrap this one up. I appreciate y'all watching. Want to shout out our channel members before we get out of here. Premier Seer 904, Nightmare Eco, Gator John Bites, Ichi Wiener, Mr. Dolphin, Scrubber Ducky 500, Brian Foster, and Frangies. Thank you all so much for supporting the channel. Hope you all have a great rest of your day. Get ready for the NFL draft, right? It's Merry Draftmas Eve, I must say, right? Whatever the heck the saying is. I'll have to think of something. I'm going to have to watch draft day as well. That's my plan for later tonight because, I don't know, that has to happen, I feel like. But I'm rambling. Hope you have a great rest of your day. And finally, go Jags.